The 1970s gave us horror classics like The Exorcist and Halloween, but dozens of brilliant films got lost in their shadows.
Stop! Stop!
Today, we're counting down 12 underrated gems that pushed boundaries and defined the decade. These forgotten masterpieces deserve your attention. Number 12. Let's Scare Jessica to Death, 1971.
I think that the same creature or whatever it is.
With just a $1.5 million budget, this psychological thriller became one of the most underrated gems of early 70s horror. Released during the post-Rosemary's Baby Paranoia wave, it follows Jessica recovering from a mental breakdown who moves to a remote farmhouse. Director John Hancock crafted something that felt both intimate and terrifying. What makes this film noteworthy is its brilliant use of ambiguity throughout the runtime. You're never sure if Jessica is experiencing supernatural events or having another breakdown. Hancock keeps viewers guessing until the final frame, creating psychological terror without gore or jump scares. Zora Lampert delivers a powerhouse performance as Jessica, conveying vulnerability and strength simultaneously. The atmospheric cinematography transforms idyllic Connecticut countryside into something genuinely unsettling. Every creaking floorboard and whispered voice becomes a potential threat. Number 11. The House That Dripped Blood, 1971. This Amicus Productions anthology featured 4 interconnected horror vignettes competing directly with Hammer Films' dominance. The British horror cycle was at its peak, bringing together legendary actors Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing in separate segments. Director Peter Duffel used a framing device of a Scotland Yard inspector investigating mysterious deaths in a cursed house. What made this noteworthy was its tight storytelling structure, keeping each segment under 30 minutes. Unlike many anthology films that feel uneven, every story maintains consistent quality and genuine scares. The interconnected nature through the house itself was innovative for the time. Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing deliver trademark performances with elaborate period costumes and detailed set designs. Each story builds tension methodically without rushing to cheap thrills. The production values feel theatrical in the best way possible. Number 10. Messiah of Evil, 1973. Created on just $89,000, this surreal art house horror emerged from independent filmmaking. Directors Willard Huyck and Gloria Katz crafted a fever dream about a woman searching for her missing father in a coastal California town. Residents are slowly transforming into cannibalistic creatures in this experimental horror that pushed boundaries between art cinema and genre filmmaking. The film gained notoriety for its dreamlike narrative structure that deliberately confuses viewers about reality. Scenes blend without clear transitions, creating unsettling atmosphere that lingers long after viewing. The zombie-like creatures aren't typical undead, but something more disturbing and unexplained. Visually striking compositions look like paintings come to life. The cinematography uses unusual angles and lighting to create genuinely unsettling moments. Practical effects work within the tiny budget to create memorable imagery that amplifies the dreamlike quality. Messiah of Evil influenced directors like David Lynch and became a midnight movie circuit favorite. Its cult following grew through bootleg copies, proving innovative horror eventually finds its audience. Number 9. The Legend of Hellhouse, 1973. Based on Richard Matheson's novel with a $500,000 budget, this haunted house thriller took a scientific approach to ghost hunting. The story follows paranormal investigators spending a week in the notorious Belasco house to prove or disprove supernatural phenomena. Roddy McDowall leads as the sole survivor of a previous investigation, bringing genuine terror to his performance. What made this noteworthy was blending scientific methodology with traditional ghost story elements. Investigators use electronic equipment and systematic approaches rather than stumbling through darkness. This gave supernatural elements more weight because characters actively tried to debunk them. McDowell delivers one of his finest performances, showing a man traumatized by previous encounters but driven to return. The supporting cast creates believable scientists facing impossible phenomena. The production design makes Belasco House genuinely threatening with oppressive architecture. Number 8, The Nightstalker, 1972. This made-for-TV movie drew 54 million viewers, becoming the highest-rated TV movie at the time with its unique blend of vampire horror and investigative journalism.
3 murders in town, Bernie. We have one tremendously strong guy, maybe more.
The story follows reporter Carl Kolchak, tracking a vampire killer through Las Vegas while battling police cover-ups and bureaucratic obstacles. Darren McGavin's iconic performance as the rumpled reporter created a character that would define supernatural procedural television for decades to come. What made this noteworthy was its urban horror setting that brought classic monster movies into contemporary America. Instead of Gothic castles, the vampire stalked neon-lit casino strips and modern hotels. This approach made ancient evil feel immediate and relevant to 70s audiences who recognized the realistic locations. McGavin's performance as Kolchak became legendary for its perfect balance of cynical humor and genuine terror. His everyman reporter fighting supernatural forces while dealing with skeptical editors felt completely authentic. The supporting cast, including Simon Oakland, created believable characters in unbelievable situations. The Nightstalker spawned a successful TV series and influenced countless supernatural procedural shows. The X-Files owes a direct debt to Kolchak's template of lone investigators pursuing paranormal cases while fighting institutional resistance. Number 7, Deathdream, 1974. Bob Clark directed this powerful Vietnam War allegory disguised as zombie horror, creating social commentary through genre filmmaking. The story follows Andy Brooks returning from Vietnam as something fundamentally changed and dangerous to his family. With its modest budget, the film used horror elements to explore themes of war trauma and family destruction that mainstream drama couldn't address as effectively. What made this noteworthy was using zombie narrative as anti-war statement during ongoing Vietnam conflict. Andy's transformation represents how war destroys young men and brings violence home to American families. The horror comes not from gore, but from watching a loving family slowly realize their son is gone forever. The performances, particularly from Lynn Carlin as the desperate mother and Richard Backus as Andy, ground supernatural elements in emotional reality. Clark's direction builds tension through family dynamics rather than traditional horror beats. The makeup effects by Tom Savini create disturbing imagery that serves the story's themes. Number 6, The Wicker Man, 1973. This British folk horror masterpiece initially suffered from studio neglect, despite featuring Christopher Lee's career-best performance as Lord Summerisle. The film follows a devoutly Christian police sergeant investigating a missing girl on a Scottish island where pagan traditions still dominate daily life. With its musical elements integrated into horror narrative, it created something entirely unique in 70s cinema. What made this noteworthy was its authentic portrayal of pagan culture without demonizing or romanticizing ancient beliefs. The islanders aren't evil cultists, but people following traditions that predate Christianity by centuries. This cultural authenticity made the final revelation genuinely shocking rather than predictably sinister. Christopher Lee considered this his finest performance, playing against type as an intelligent, charismatic leader rather than a traditional villain. The supporting cast creates a believable community with their own customs and values. The musical numbers feel organic to island culture rather than forced entertainment. Number 5, Black Christmas, 1974.
Hello?
Hey, Mommy. Hey, baby.
Bob Clark directed this proto-slasher with a $620,000 budget, creating the template that would influence Halloween and Friday the 13th. The film follows sorority sisters receiving threatening phone calls during Christmas break while a killer stalks their house. What made this revolutionary was its focus on psychological terror through unseen menace rather than graphic violence. The phone-based horror creates genuine unease as obscene calls escalate to deadly threats. Clark's innovative camera work puts viewers in the killer's perspective without revealing his identity. The Christmas setting subverts holiday comfort into something sinister and threatening. Olivia Hussey and Margot Kidder deliver strong performances as college women fighting for survival. The film treats its female characters as intelligent protagonists rather than helpless victims, which was progressive for 70s horror. Number 4. Don't Look Now, 1973. Nicholas Roeg directed this psychological masterpiece starring Donald Sutherland and Julie Christie as grieving parents in Venice following their daughter's drowning. With its art cinema approach to supernatural horror, the film explores grief and psychic phenomena through Roeg's innovative editing and visual symbolism. The Venice setting becomes a labyrinthine reflection of the characters' psychological states. What makes this noteworthy is Roeg's use of color symbolism, particularly red, to create connections across time and space. The editing techniques fragment narrative time to mirror how grief distorts memory and perception. This approach influenced art house horror for decades. Sutherland and Christie deliver career-defining performances as a couple struggling with loss while experiencing possibly supernatural visions. Their relationship feels authentic, even as reality becomes increasingly uncertain. The supporting cast creates believable characters in an otherworldly Venice. Number 3. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 1974. Tobe Hooper's independent masterpiece cost just $140,000, but earned over $30 million at the box office, proving low-budget horror could achieve massive success. The film follows teenagers encountering a family of cannibals in rural Texas, creating raw documentary-style horror that felt disturbingly real to audiences. Its grainy 16mm photography and aggressive sound design made viewers feel like unwilling witnesses to genuine violence. What made this revolutionary was its unflinching brutality, presented without glamorizing violence. The film's power comes from relentless tension and disturbing imagery rather than excessive gore. Hooper's direction creates genuine terror through atmosphere and sound design that makes every scene feel dangerous. The cast of unknown actors adds authenticity to the nightmare scenario. Gunnar Hansen's Leatherface became an iconic horror villain through physical performance rather than dialogue. The family dynamics create disturbing black comedy within the horror framework. Number 2. Susperia, 1977. Dario Argento's supernatural masterpiece represents Italian giallo evolution into pure visual horror, with its story of an American ballet student uncovering a witch conspiracy at her German dance academy. The film's Technicolor cinematography creates a fairy tale nightmare world where every frame looks like a painting. Goblin's synthesizer soundtrack perfectly complements the visual excess with aggressive electronic music. What makes this noteworthy is Argento's emphasis on style over traditional narrative logic. The film operates like a waking dream where color, sound, and movement create emotional responses rather than plot developments. This approach influenced music video aesthetics and visual horror filmmaking for decades. Jessica Harper delivers a committed performance as the innocent protagonist thrust into supernatural danger. The supporting cast creates believable characters within the heightened reality of Argento's vision. The production design transforms the dance academy into a gothic nightmare palace. Number 1. Martin, 1977.
Vampire.
George Romero directed this vampire deconstruction for just $80,000, creating the most realistic portrayal of modern vampirism ever filmed. The story follows a young man who believes he's a vampire, but might simply be a disturbed killer, blending psychological horror with supernatural ambiguity. Romero strips away Gothic romance to examine what vampirism would actually look like in contemporary America. What makes this revolutionary is its refusal to confirm whether Martin is supernatural or mentally ill. The ambiguity forces viewers to question everything they see while creating genuine sympathy for a potentially dangerous character. This approach influenced modern vampire fiction by grounding fantasy elements in psychological realism. John Amplas delivers a haunting performance as Martin, creating a character both pitiable and terrifying. The supporting cast in working-class Pittsburgh creates authentic blue-collar atmosphere. Romero's direction finds horror in mundane settings and everyday situations. The 70s proved horror could be intelligent, artistic, and terrifying without big budgets or major studios. These forgotten gems pushed boundaries and influenced generations of filmmakers. Which film surprised you most? Subscribe for more deep dives into cinema history.